Our next inductee is a gentleman who is remembered as one of the earliest boxing stars from right here in the Tampa Bay area. He was born in Tampa. He began his professional career as a welterweight back in 1924. While many of his fights took place right here in the Bay Area, he was never afraid to go on the road and fight several bouts places like Salt Lake City and San Francisco. During an incredible 9-year career, he fought a total of 156 professional bouts. He finished up with 120 wins, 19 losses, 15 draws, 42 wins by way of knockout, a total of 1,290 rounds of professional boxing. He was known for his tremendous skills as a southpaw and his willingness to give it all in the ring. He was very much a gentleman. He was loved by the fans and everyone here in the Bay Area community. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to welcome to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2011 welterweight contender Manuel Quintero. Accepting the award on behalf of Manuel Quintero, Mr. Rod Jurado.
Appreciate it very much. Appreciate that. That's him. They call him Young Manuel. Manuel was my uncle. And was one of 7 kids, all born in Tampa. He was the youngest one of them. And I just want to start by saying I'm Rod Jurado. I'm broken up at this. And I'll tell you why in a second. But thank you, Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, for remembering my Uncle Manuel. I never saw him fight, obviously. He was 50 years old when I was born. But he was way over the hill when he and my grandfather took me over to the Police Athletic League and put boxing gloves on me and said, "We want you to do this." And I realized then that I was going to be a fan and not a fighter. But I do recall spending hours with him looking through his clippings. Now, he wasn't on TV because obviously TV wasn't around at that time, but he talked about the train, he talked about the travels, the fighters, the experiences he had in Seattle and Boise and Cuba and all these different places. And shortly after I got married, I discovered that my wife was a boxing fan. I didn't know that. Some of you know her as the chairman of the Boxing Commission, Dr. Mel Jurado. But my mom said, "Where's Mel?" And Sylvia, Manuel's wife, said, "She's probably looking at his clippings. He always gets new people to look at the clippings." And sure enough, I went in there, and they were laughing, and he's teaching her how to do a jab followed by a cross. They just had a great time doing that. Well, Manuel died 24 years ago. He was remembered as a loving father, as a great husband. He even had an honor guard from the Tampa Fire Department because he spent a career there after he was a boxer. But I can remember telling my grandmother, you know, it's too bad he wasn't remembered as a boxer. And she said, well, maybe sometime later that's going to happen. So thank you, Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, for remembering my Uncle Manuel. Not just for Manuel, but I want to share the kind of fighter that not just was he, but the guys around him, because they all traveled together. They fought from city to city, and look at the records. They fought one time, and then a month later fought again in a different city. Like I said, the youngest of 7 children. In 1924, he was 18 years old. Had an inauspicious start, was 2-1-1 in a 10-week career. He was a tough guy. In his 4th fight, he lost. He lost to 10-2-1 fighter named Oscar Coleman. And he hated losing. I remember him telling me, "I hate to lose." And so he thought about not fighting anymore. Well, a year later, in December, he was in the boxing ring with the same Oscar Coleman, and that time he beat him. So in 16 months, he only fought 5 times, but it wasn't a bad start, 3-1-1. Then, from June 1926 to November 1932, Manuel fought an incredible 127 fights, winning 105 of them. Think about that. That's more than 1 fight a month. 13 were decisions, so he only lost 9 times during that time. During that time, Ring Magazine said that in 1928, he was the 10th ranked lightweight contender in the world. Then he dropped down a couple weight classes. In 1929, he was the 3rd ranked junior welterweight. In 1930, he was the 1st ranked junior welterweight. In 1931, he was the 3rd ranked junior welterweight. And in National Boxing Association Quarterly Magazine in 31 and 32 said he was 4th of all the fighters at that time. And once again, I appreciate the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame for recognizing not just world champions, but the journeymen, the warriors, the palookas, the guys who love the sport. Even my uncle just loved being a boxer. Florida's boxing heritage has great heroes and great champions, and and if it wasn't for some of the historians like Ramiro, I know you spoke on my uncle's behalf, and Johnny Boz was always, let's get Quintero in there, and I appreciate people who appreciated fighting and fighters, not just people who knock people out. Even though Manuel knocked 42 people out, I appreciate that. We're going to recognize Roy Jones and Nate Campbell and Antonio Tarver and the rest of the crowd that's going on now. We've recognized great people in the past who deserve to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. But there are hundreds of people who were fighters and proud to be fighters during a time when there wasn't much else to do. There's doctors and there's corners, there's promoters, referees. It's a group of people, it's a star, it's a galaxy of people who have kept the sport alive, and I appreciate that. Last year, we inducted 4 like that. Great amateur Eddie Flynn and Tommy Gomez, who fought for 11 years and had 90 fights, and Willie Pep, who had 241 fights. We had Elmer Ray, who had 106 fights. These guys were champions because, I think it was Steve Yerra last night who pointed out, they got up more often than they got knocked down. And that's a powerful thing. So here's my Uncle Manuel, who fought from 1924 to 1935. You heard his record. In 1926, he had a 9-1-4 record. 1927, fought 19 times with a 15-2-2 record. 28, fought 13 times, 12-1 record. 1929, 23 times, a 22-1 record. And my uncle wasn't the only one like this. As I read through BoxRec, he fought lots of guys who had just as many fights, maybe even more fights than him. In 1930, he fought Sammy Manson down in Miami, who was, at the time, Sammy was 63-5-4, and the world champion is a lightweight. The little marker says that he got $10,000 and my uncle got 12.5% of the gate, which ended up being about $3,500. These guys fought because they wanted to, not because they were going to make a ton of money on it. In 1930, he fought 25 times, 21, 1, and 3. Think about it, 25 times, that's 2 times a month. In 1931, he fought 19 times, 15, 1, and 3. He fought champion Charlie Caveman Falaci to a draw on July 4th, 1931, and 3 weeks later came back on July 24th and beat him. He won the Intermountain welterweight title at that time. Earlier in his career, Manuel had an interesting 3 months that I think kind of demonstrates not just him, but the fighters of that era, the warrior mentality, that mindset of endurance and willingness to do whatever it takes. In 1930, the welterweight world champion was Tommy Freeman. In 1931, a couple years later, he was still ranked as a top 10 welterweight. And in November of 1933, Manuel went up a class to fight him. At the time, Tommy's record was, get this, 100, 13, and 14. Tommy won that one. Well, 3 months later, Manuel asked for a rematch, got it, and that time, Manuel won. He didn't like to lose. In West Palm Beach, he fought Frankie Osner on another July 14th in 1927 and lost, and 7 days later fought him again and beat him. These guys were amazing. Not just my uncle, but all those guys. And while he fought for 4 world titles, he never won one. He did fight 2 world champions and drew both of them. He was nearing the end of his career when Jimmy Gardner knocked him out at Benjamin Field in Tampa. He didn't knock him out of the ring. He fell in the ring, broke his collarbone, had to take a TKO. Probably would have been better off retiring then. But 8 months later, he came back and he fought Relampago Seguro, who at the time was a Cuban welterweight champion. And Relampago had an 86-25-8 record. How's that for a name and a record? 3 weeks later, he fought Tampa's Chino Alvarez. Remember Chino Alvarez, who was 73-24-8. All these guys fought 120 times, 130 times, 140 times in their career. I think Chino and Relampago are probably 2 people we'd ought to think about for the Hall of Fame as well. But what do you do when you're 29 years old? You've had 156 fights, and your career is over. Well, fortunately, because he was so beloved in Tampa, he was able to land a job as a firefighter. And he spent a whole career, and he retired from the Tampa Firefighters. and went on. So he went from fighting opponents to fighting other fiery opponents. But I guess that's a different time, isn't it? So I once again want to, the page is sticking. I want to thank the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame for recognizing my Uncle Manuel. 2 years after his wife Sylvia passed away, 24 years after he passed, you've helped me remember Manuel. You've made me look back at his career. And for all past posterity, you've remembered Manuel for my family and for Tampa. More importantly, thank you for remembering the journeyman fighters who loved the square circle and were willing to do whatever it took to be champions. Continue looking for those lost warriors who have never won championships but won the hearts and admiration of their neighbors in the neighborhood. Sorry about that. I want to finish with a little poem, and it's one that I think fits the four that just came down. It's by Linda Ellis, and it's called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend, and he referred to the dates on his tombstone from beginning to end. He noted that first came the date of the birth, and then spoke the following date with tears, but said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represented all the time that he spent alive on earth, and now only those who love him know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things that you'd change? For if you never know how much time is left, that can still be arranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? I know that my Uncle Manuel is looking down, and he's proud of what you guys have done for him. Thank you. I just knocked him.